got Kent Sheehey here this week, and a man of many hats, as far as I can tell, from a very widespread background, but now gotten to know you really well because you're right next door with the Sweat Happy Wellness Reformer Pilates studio. Mm-hmm. So just tell us a bit about who you are personally, not necessarily the business, but how you identify yourself, and we'll get going from there.
Okay, true. So I'm Kent Sheehey, co-owner of Sweat Happy Wellness, right next door here to Flow Spa. We own a Reformer Pilates studio. I am a longtime entrepreneur. I've been on many entrepreneurial journeys since my early 20s. Many failures, some wins, you know what I mean? They're all wins, really.
Yeah.
Gotta see it that way.
Absolutely.
And what else? I guess I'm plant-based. I don't eat meat. I practice breathing. I'm really into foraging. Cool. I guess that's me in a nutshell, really.
What do you forage?
Mostly just wild greens, like weeds and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like dandelions, plantains, thistles, stuff that grow around your house. I don't necessarily go out into the forest and do a lot of foraging.
Okay.
I also do mushrooms and stuff like that.
Cool. I want to get more into that. We'll talk after.
For sure.
Well, or we can talk within.
Now.
It's very interesting, actually. Yeah. So that's something that is definitely on the fringe of even nutrition right now, but I think it's picking up in popularity, especially with the knowledge that a lot of like the produce we're getting is not from organic sources. So the concerns over what's contaminating our food sources, mm-hmm. and there are still untapped areas in nature that fortunately aren't as adulterated by pesticides and things like that. So it's really fascinating. What how did you like find out about that or realize it was a thing? Did it just come to you naturally, or was there like somebody that inspired you with that?
A guy named Marcus Rothkrantz on YouTube. He's this German dude who lives in Newmarket, or he's from Newmarket actually. Now he lives in California, but he wrote a book called Free Food and Medicine.
Cool.
And he also made a documentary around it, just showing people how they can find all of this medicine that grows right around their house that can basically heal them of anything. And that's the main way that I found out about it. And it was just because I was a raw vegan at the time. And that can be quite expensive when you're just buying a lot of fruit and a lot of fresh vegetables and stuff like that. And so when I realized, well, you can just eat dandelions that grow outside. Yeah. I was like, that's free. So, and also, like you said, it's not covered in pesticides, which is a huge issue. And, you know, if you're not careful of that with the cleaning of the fruits and vegetables, that can cause more problems than what you were trying to get away from by becoming a raw vegan. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's it pretty much.
It's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
So with the mushrooms, do you go anywhere particular, or once again it's kind of like when it sprouts out around your home, or what do you do there? Because it's also I guess to sort of put the cautionary statement out there too, like there are mushrooms that people have to sort of be cautious of, right? They have to avoid or be a little bit cognizant of which mushrooms they're foraging for. So is there like a resource you go to? I know there's some really interesting mycologists out there that are kind of spreading this awareness around the power of mushrooms. So
there's a ton of information on YouTube, of course, about like mushroom foraging, about everything.
Definitely. Life on YouTube.
I'm a part-time graduate of YouTube University. That's me for sure. 99% of mushrooms are fine, are healthy for you. So there isn't actually that many poisonous mushrooms. A lot of the information out there, or the fear-mongering about it, isn't actually true.
That's good to know.
Yeah, but I would say I'm more of like an opportunistic forager of mushrooms and of like other things too. I just do it when it's there. You know what I mean? For a while there, I was really into it. I'd go out, and me and Becky would go out on hikes, my wife, and we'd do it just to forage and look for turkey tail mushrooms, and that's pretty magical. It's a pretty fun thing to do for sure. Yeah. But nowadays, it's just like I found a huge chaga mushroom
Great.
last year, and it's because I cut down trees with my dad once in a while. My dad's an arborist, and we were just cutting down a tree, and I looked up into the tree and saw a big fat chaga mushroom, and I was like, no way, amazing. So my dad cut it down, we cut that piece out, and I took it home, and that's been lasting me for a couple months now. And that's,
Amazing.
chaga is expensive. It was a good like $100 worth of chaga mushroom.
Amazing.
So
Good for you too.
it is. It's so amazing. Oh, you can like feel the benefits when you drink a good thick chaga tea, because like it's different when you get it free. You can put tons of it into, and you know what I mean, and you just make a huge tea that's like so thick and black.
Like high on chaga.
Oh, and it just like you feel it alkalizing your body, much like Wim Hof breath work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You saw me the first time I ingested chaga.
Yeah.
I was just here. There's a kombucha across the street at Healthy Planet that has it in it,
that's
and
right.
like I'm sensitive to everything. I feel everything like.
Good. Cool.
Very, yeah. It can be cool. It can also be terrifying.
It's true.
But I just was like.
You thought you were like drunk from it.
I felt high. Like I was just so blissed out. Like not in a paranoid way, just in a like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a coffee alternative.
Yeah.
That's what it's used for in like
Is it?
different
Okay.
European countries.
Cool.
Yeah, like Switzerland. I'm pretty sure it's a
Yeah,
very
they do everything better there.
popular coffee.
I think it's included in the Four Sigmatic mushroom coffee as well for that reason, so that you don't get it's a good energizer without the joltiness of too much caffeine. I think that's what they include.
Yeah,
with their
where is that company from?
They're from I was just listening
Is
to
it Switzerland? Or it's some country like that? 'Cause that's what I meant, to be honest.
Actually, no, it's Finland.
Finland. That's what I
I'm
meant.
pretty sure, because
okay.
there's
They
an
all do everything better.
excellent podcast with his name's Tiro. I forget what his last name's pretty complicated, but he the founder of Four Sigmatic was just on the Finding Mastery podcast, and it's a really great conversation. He's very fascinating, and like their company's become really big and widespread, like well known in the US and now in Canada, but he's so like humble and to himself, and it's a really great conversation and fascinating to learn, because he's so passionate about the mushrooms that their company has really brought to the forefront of Western society in a lot of ways. I think there's definitely some other people up there, but I think Four Sigmatic's done a big job as far as getting it out there.
Yeah, I think
So that's a very cool one. And so it seems like a lot of the stuff that you do as well is based around like fitness and wellness in that sense. So where did that come from? Like, have you been a lifelong fitness junkie, or how did you sort of find that pathway?
Kind of. I've been a long time fitness junkie. I'd say I started working out when I was like 16, 17 years old, just kind of pumping weights in the gym, learning from the guys with big biceps, and never really made, like, very rarely saw changes in my body. I was drinking protein shakes with ice cream in them, you know what I mean? Like no clue what I was doing.
Yeah.
Killing myself, basically. Slowly, yes. Quickly, actually.
Fair.
Because at around the age 23 or so, I was working in Barrie, Ontario. I was an audio engineer, so I was recording bands. And I was working like crazy hours, like 10, 12 hours a day, every single day, or 6 days a week. And was just running myself into the ground. I was drinking tons of coffee, like 5 cups of coffee a day. By that time in my life, I was already pretty unhealthy. I didn't really know it, but I was always a very tired person throughout my whole life. So during that time when I really had to step it up and actually get some work done, I was just running on stimulants like coffee and other things. And that was just destroying. It was making me really stressed. Too much coffee destroys your adrenals. You're tense, you know what I mean? You're not feeling
Anxious
good, and you're dehydrated because the coffee dehydrates you.
Yeah.
And I was ruining my health, and so I got into fitness trying to fix my health. You know what I mean? I got back into fitness. So I think it was around the time I started listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, and I got inspired to start working out. And I put in a good year of just intense weightlifting, really trying to change my body, meeting all these old guys that were doing, real bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And after 1 year, I got my newbie gains and then there was no change. You know what I mean? And I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, I've been working so hard. What's going on here? And then one day I just meet this other dude and he goes, man, it's all diet. Like, it's all diet, you know? So I was like, okay, that guy's pretty ripped, so I'll listen to what he says. I'll start changing my diet a little bit. So I started buying some, mini tomatoes and eating fruits and vegetables, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I wasn't currently doing really at all. And started seeing changes in my body almost right away by just eating mainly I pretty much just went right paleo, like just meats and fruits and vegetables and stuff like that, and cutting out gluten and stuff. This was probably around the time that Dave Asprey was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I started learning about the Bulletproof Diet and a more ketogenic way of eating. And so I picked up on that, started eating the Bulletproof Diet, basically, the butter coffees and all of that. And I started feeling great, you know what I mean? I started fasting because that's one thing that it goes really well with keto. Getting into ketosis is easily done by fasting, you know what I mean? So I started getting into fasting, realizing the benefits of fasting. I started to get more energy. My tiredness was going away, and I was feeling great. But I started to get really constipated. I started to realize after like 2 years of pretty much just eating butter and meat, butter and bacon, that I wouldn't go to the bathroom sometimes for like 3 days at a time.
Oh, wow.
And that wasn't fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was always just really turned off by like vegans. You know what I mean? I was always that guy if like someone posted something about. I have. Yeah. I was always like, if someone posted something on the internet about veganism, I'd be that guy who goes, well, you're gonna ruin your diet, you're gonna ruin your health. You know what I mean? Blah blah blah. Like I just didn't believe in it. I didn't even entertain the thought that it was possible to be healthy on a vegan diet. You know what I mean? Right. And then I started working at this desk job where I was able to run YouTube in the background. And this is when I really started, because before it was like podcasts, now I'm working this desk job and I can run YouTube and listen to it in my headphones. And I started entertaining different ways of thinking, you know what I mean? Other than just what Joe Rogan, our Lord and Savior, has to say, pretty much, you know? Yeah. Exactly. And it started making sense. I was like, oh, like these guys are saying that we're supposed to be having bowel movements 3 times a day. Mm-hmm. When like keto people, it's like they're almost okay with not going every day. You know what I mean? So I just kept listening to it and kept just going, okay, these guys have really good points, and you can't really fight against the aspect of it that it's more morally
like the ethical,
correct. The ethical aspect. Yeah. You can't really fight that. You know what I mean? And so I started to try it, and I kind of hopped into a pretty hardcore form of veganism because I'm kind of that kind of hardcore type of person. You know what I mean?
All or nothing sort of thing.
With both feet.
Yeah. So I went like basically fruit based, like right away, and
did you do the banana thing?
The 30 bananas a day thing. Yeah. No, I never did that.
Okay,
but
I tried that once.
Yeah.
It was challenging, and I will not eat bananas anymore.
Yeah. You definitely want to eat high quality bananas if you're going to do that.
Yeah. I think that was my problem. I was a student at the time, and I was like scrounging I was living in Toronto eating Chinatown bananas all day, every day.
True.
I did 10 days of it.
Nice. That's pretty good.
It's all right.
Nice. I did like a couple years basically on just fruit too.
Good for you.
Mm-hmm. And I felt great. Lost a lot of my muscle. Like I lost all of my muscle. Was very low weight. Was also practicing tons of different fasting during that time, which led to me losing all that weight. Really, I did like a 2-day dry fast. My fasting. I don't have that much to brag about fasting wise, but I'm still just really into it.
Yeah.
And then I would say I probably did about a year or so where I was eating under 1,000 calories a day and just doing a ton of breath work. And so that was a fast in itself, that full year basically of doing that. And a lot of the issues that just kind of stopped, the symptoms kind of stopped during keto. And it wouldn't flare up like low testosterone and different things like this. They basically just went completely away. Like the fruits actually did heal me. You know what I mean? And as I started to eat more, my body just went back to the way it was before I was sick. So keto kind of stopped the symptoms and made me feel better at the time. But eating plant-based, mainly just fruit, seem to have healed me completely, and also the breath work and the fasting and everything all wrapped up inside of it. But it's the more holistic way of looking at health that definitely fixed all of my health issues at the time. So I wouldn't say that I'm perfect. I'm still working on it, and it's always a journey. You know what I mean? You're always learning, and you got to be open to learning.
Yeah.
So I'm still trying to figure it out and still on that journey. So it's like to be continued. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
There's no ending to that story.
No, very much so.
That's good. I'm curious because we talk about flow a lot. Like, do you know the state of flow to get into? Yeah. I'm curious.
What is it, like beta waves or alpha waves or something?
I don't know.
Brain waves?
Well, as far as the brain waves go, it's most likely in like an alpha state, because beta's where it's sort of like the anxiety, kind of the mid-teens to higher hertz, and then alpha's kind of that, I think, 12 to 14 hertz range. I don't know if it's not always necessarily, well, it's in that like focused, it's in that focused brainwave state. So we'd probably see that being kind of the state there, but it's more like the feeling itself. So being completely present in the moment, in the activity itself. And were you gonna lead into
go ahead.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, I want to know, like, specifically, because we haven't really talked about diet and flow on this podcast, like, how do you feel, if at all, the way of eating, or like your journey with eating, has helped you mentally in your flow state, or has it?
Yeah, big time, definitely. It's, your gut is your second brain. Like, that's what everybody's talking about nowadays, So the healthier your gut is, the more healthy your brain patterns are going to be. So like, the truth is lack of food is my favorite way to get into a good flow state. You know what I mean? Fasting, being fasted, and just having high energy. Obviously, you need the energy. You know what I mean? If you're eating heavy, dense foods, in my opinion, that's just going to slow you down. Like, when I was eating more keto based, I was eating more dense foods. Like, meat is very dense, so it moves through your system a little slower. And when your elimination is a little bit slower, everything else is slower. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So.
Yeah, cool.
We do hear that a lot. Not necessarily on the podcast. It's the first time we've really gotten into the way diet interacts with flow, but you hear it with people who are fasting. For sure seems to be the thing. Like,
there's a
lot of people, if they're trying to do their best work in the morning, it's fasted or on an empty stomach, or with very light meals in place, because it helps them I guess, like you said, it's your gut's your second brain, and maybe that's related to why it seems to work so well. But also, it could also have to do somewhat with like the production of ketones, right? Because I hear a lot of people say that they focus better on a ketogenic diet, and so fasting related to that, just the low blood sugar too, right? Like, not having those crazy insulin spikes. Maybe it's something to do with that, but it's interesting, and it's good to hear. And so something that also, tends to be very flow producing for people, and we haven't touched on a whole lot yet, is you're in a band, right? Yeah. And so I'm not sure if that's one of the things that you talked about, being an audio engineer. So I'm guessing you're pretty deeply passionate about music, are you? And so what's it like for you when you're performing? And some of those characteristics of flow are things like you lose track of time. You're kind of on autopilot. So is it all of the above for you? What kind of things, when you like look back on like a concert performance, is it that like kind of comes to mind for you? Yeah,
definitely. Like, time doesn't slow down, time speeds up.
Yeah.
But it slows down at the same time. It's interesting. Like,
it doesn't exist, I think.
It doesn't exist. Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
And then you're in a flow state because you're following the pulse, right? And that's the musician's job. That's their career. It's just, you got to stay on that pulse. You got to ride that wave up and down. So you're focused on that, and you're focused on staying like tension free in your body, because music can't have any tension in it. It's got to be flowing and graceful. You know what I mean? It's the best music is somewhere in between the masculine and the feminine, which is just, you know what I mean? It's slightly feminine, but like tension filled. It's ballerinas. Look at ballerinas. That's music, really, without an instrument. You know what I mean? They're strong, but they're graceful. So being in that state is a flow state in itself, riding that pulse. And then you get the other aspect of music, which is the creativity side of music, which is like when you're in that flow state, you start getting those downloads from God, basically, that are just, you know, like when creatives say that they create something, paint something, write a song, they say it doesn't come from themselves, you know?
Right.
They get that download and it just happens and it's there. And like all my best songs that I've ever written happen within like 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, the song's done. And it's the best
That's
song.
what I've heard,
ever.
A lot of like the big hits out there are like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Just because it's, like you said, it's been fed to them and it's just like done.
So that's the other part of the flow state in music, is that it's like you get that direct flow from the ether, the universe, whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean?
Cool.
So music is very much a practice of flow state for sure. Like the more that you do it, the more that you're going to be able to sink into that flow state naturally.
Yeah. I love that. I love your comment about reducing tension, because I think that's universal with flow state. Like with even, I've never heard that with music, but that's awesome. Like I grew up learning piano and they're always saying like keep your body flowy because otherwise it's not going to work. But I never really made that connection with flow. But I love that, because I think in life in general, like if you want to be in your flow zone, you can't, or your flow state, whatever, you can't have tension. You can't have all these stressors, other things going on, you know, that to-do list nagging at you, because then you're not there, you're not present.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah,
like
that's a very great point. And I was just reading like this quote from a writer, and it very much resonates what you just said, which is his best work essentially came when he let go of the thinker. You know, you think of writing as something where you've got a lot of like processing going through your mind to like complete the structure of the sentence, paragraph, etc. But this writer was saying that the best work that he ever did came when he eliminated that, and it just flows out of him, or flows out of the ether, wherever it's coming from. It's very interesting, and it's that's one of the universalities of flow states for sure, is this and some people call it like autopilot, or just letting your subconscious or unconscious take over. Because if you're tense, if you're in a state of conscious action, it's when you aren't able to get fully into it.
This goes back to, I forget what podcast it was on, but we were talking about Prince.
Yeah.
And I guess I haven't watched his documentary, but we listened to a different podcast that referenced him and, you know, how did it all happen, Prince? How are y'all, like, why is it all success for you? And he's like, well, you just got to be cool. And it's kind of coming down to that.
Yeah.
We all just got to chill out a little bit. Get out of your head.
Big time, man.
Yeah.
And that's what like I find this entrepreneurial journey for me has come down to, is just kind of just being chill and happy and spreading light, and people like being attracted to that light and wanting to learn how to generate a little bit of that light in themselves. You know what I mean? That chillness in themselves. And that's all, it's all just energy, you know what I mean? And you have dark energy and you have light energy, and you can sell either one of those. But people are more attracted to the light energy and are realizing and are waking up to the dark energy in the world. You know what I mean? And that I'd say the positive, the light, is more in tune with that chillness, that tension-free living, which people are being more attracted to now.
Yeah,
for sure.
Cool. That's it's funny. That's kind of what I still instill in my personal training. Like, I can't remember the last time I prospected for clients. I don't do that. I let them come to me. I just put my everything into the people I have. And then I open up to, we'll say, ether, universe, whoever. And I say, like, I'm looking for a client this many, like, for instance, I did this the other day. I need a 5 o'clock 3 times a week, Monday, Tuesday, Friday. And then after the Combine event, someone came up to me and said, I am looking for, a month of pretty intensive personal training. Like, do you have 5 o'clock available? And I was like, yes. But it's neat because I'm like, I'm not pushing for it. Like, I used to work for Good Life, which is very salesy, and they push a lot. And I never did that. And I, like, even when I worked for Good Life, I refused because I don't want someone to do that to me. And I was one of the top trainers in my club in terms of what they consider top, as in, like, getting many clients to sign on to contracts. And it's all, just chill out, let business come to you. Just do your work, put your head down, stay in your lane, like we say, and set up your bumpers. Yeah. Whatever that looks like. And
it's all about word of mouth right now, for sure.
100%, yeah.
Like all of our business that we generated over there is like, well, not all of it, you know what I mean? I made some commercials on Facebook and we ran some Facebook ads and they did great for us. But now it's just all just people telling each other. And that's just people being happy with what you do. Yeah. You know what I mean? And people need to start talking to each other more, because we're with the phones and social media, we're not talking to each other. Like, we can't feel each other's energy anymore through the phones. So more and more people are going to get trapped by these advertising methods that, like, Good Life Fitness and stuff are using, where they're not really giving people that good of service. They can, you know what I mean, if the trainer's good, but like they're hiring a lot of people with not the best certifications, you know what I mean. They don't vet them all that hard, and therefore people are going to get caught by these advertising tricks to get people in and paying too much money for these things that don't offer them that much value, you know what I mean? So the more that we can talk to each other and just spread energy, the more that the good energy is going to be, it's going to
flourish.
It's going to flourish, and we're going to save ourselves.
True, totally. Exactly.
It's actually a great transition point because I was just listening to Seth Godin does a podcast. He's like a
I know Seth Godin.
Yeah, exactly. He's well known in the marketing world. But in my, like, I think a lot of people see him as sort of like the king of marketing, in that he's not a pushy salesperson. He's just very intelligent about that whole point of providing value and everything. And I was just listening to one yesterday called "Don't Be Evil," is what he's talking about. And that's actually, so it's a riff that he kind of did about Google, essentially, because that is, I think, still something that's inside their headquarters on the wall. It says "Don't be evil," but he kind of broke it down into there's a lot of evil that Google is doing as far as controlling our attention streams, right? So putting more and more on the Google search page where people are paying for the advertising. And even like in Gmail, right? You've got those ads in Gmail. If you use the Gmail platform, above all the promotions, there's like spots where people can pay to have their email inserted in your inbox, right? So it was kind of like this idea of don't be evil and do the things that spread light. I think is the critical message, absolutely. And that's how you get the word of mouth going, and we're majorly like a word of mouth based business as well. And people want to know how the experience was from other customers before they necessarily try it themselves, right? And that's how you get the snowball rolling and growing and spreading light. And another interesting thing that like all of this parallels with me, and it seems to be in place like very much so with your business, maybe at least your side of it. I don't know so much if you identify as more like introverted or extroverted, but I think definitely more like
introvert, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's maybe the answer isn't always what we're saying, but I think it's a good one to spread because it really goes into this, I think, building encouragement for people that whether they want to start a business or whatever, they just want more self-confidence. It doesn't always have to be like the world of the extrovert, right? And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that unless you're going to be evil, like you said, spreading more of the dark sort of energy of business, and
which is idolizing money at its
exactly. Instead of doing something that you're like passionate about, that's the great way to summarize it. So there is that, but there's also like this more spreading the good light, I think, is sometimes like an introverted pursuit, and at least in the way that like you don't have to go out and be pushy about it, but people will come to you.
That's my brain's all going on like, it's cool, this is stuff you don't have to force. You can't force light, like it just is. You can't force truth, you can't force flow, like these are all things that just are. And if you're someone who's like, if you're a light worker, you're someone who's spreading light, like there's just 100% truth in that, or it's not light. And you can't force it. So these things, like, you don't need these aggressive sales tactics. It just is. And it'll, like, if you trust it, it'll go where it needs to go. And then we come back to Prince, or just being cool.
Yeah.
You know? Just being cool.
The king of cool. The masculine and the feminine. Perfectly intertwined, you know what I mean?
He's a balanced man.
All the best musicians are actually like that.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Michael Jackson. Just. Yeah. There's so many.
Yeah. So I now kind of carrying that forward, just so that we're staying on track with like our timeline. We've got to get back to work and stuff. So Sweat Happy Wellness, and you've started this new Reformer Pilates business. For anybody that doesn't know, what is Reformer Pilates? And then, like as you said, Sweat Happy is kind of spreading its message really fast and growing rapidly. You started in Lindsay, and now you're next door in the studio in Pulse Physiotherapy. So tell us a bit about that, and I think we'll certainly get Becky on sometime, because she'd also be great to talk about this, but I want to hear it from your perspective too. And
my wife rules. Hey, Becky. Reformer Pilates, the Reformer machine is a machine that Joseph Pilates started in like the early 1900s. He created, basically he was trying to rehabilitate bedridden soldiers in World War I. And that's why the machines kind of look like a bed. You lie down on them for the most part. And he basically strung up all these springs and these ropes and straps and stuff on these hospital beds so that people could start building their core so that they could hopefully one day stand and walk again, So in doing that, he realized that he had something really amazing. This machine, the way that it gives you like this tactile feedback of your control and how stable you are. You know what I mean? You can easily see the differences and the imbalances in your body in terms of stability using this machine. So he realized that he had something really good, and he took it to New York. Where he started training ballerinas or dancers and stuff. I think people who were just in the arts.
Yeah.
And he called it controlology while he was in New York. And so it's basically the study of how to precisely control and articulate your body, And so that's Reformer Pilates. You can look it up on the internet. You can see pictures of it. It kind of just looks like a little torture / sex machine. It's a weird looking
there's
thing.
A lot of like strings and ropes and springs.
Exactly. It's really cool though, and it's really fun. But basically, our story starts with Becky. She worked at a physiotherapy clinic in Toronto, and her boss paid for her to get training in Pilates, both mat Pilates and Reformer Pilates, in order to rehabilitate people at this physiotherapy clinic. And so she did her schooling, and she really liked it, and she kept taking all these Reformer and Pilates classes all in Toronto and learned tons about it. And then we were both living in the city during that time. We quit our jobs. We went traveling in like Southeast Asia for a while and to find ourselves and figure out what the heck we wanted to do. Yeah. Exactly. And we came home and still trying to figure it out, what we wanted to do. And then Becky convinced me to buy one Reformer machine. And we had it in this little room, about the size of this room, just a little 10 by 10 room, where we were trying to sell privates out of there with this one single Reformer that's probably like 20 years old. It's not the nicest Reformer. But anyways, it wasn't going that well. She was only getting like one client in every week or so. But I started using it. And I was just like at first I didn't know what I was doing, but I was just kind of playing on it. I for a long time I didn't know what I was doing. I was just kind of doing bicep, like just doing silly manly type workouts on this machine. No clue how it was going to benefit me, but I was starting to like get it, how you do movements slowly and you control them, and you have to be in control or you'll fall off the carriage. Basically, that's the That's the thing with the machine. And I started getting these crazy benefits from it, like right away. Like my shoulders started to widen. My posture was starting to get better without even understanding how it was working or what I was doing, because I wasn't even doing the workouts correctly, you know? And my guitar playing started improving, like huge amounts. And then my singing started improving. Like my diaphragmatic control started improving. So I was getting all these crazy benefits. So when I get stoked on something, I go full-fledged with it, you know what I mean? So I was just like, Becky, like straight up, like, I love this thing. I don't even know how to use it, but I'm getting all these crazy benefits. I can sell this. Like, I don't care what it's supposed to be doing. Whatever it's doing for me, I can sell this, you know what I mean? So we decided to, one day I was standing in our master bedroom, which is about 2 times the size of this room. And I was like, Becky, we could probably buy like 4 machines and run a little studio in here, and you could put on classes. And maybe if, you know, instead of charging people $50 an hour for privates, we could charge $20 and make $80 in that hour with 4 machines. You know what I mean? And she was just like, oh, she didn't think it would work, because we've tried so many businesses over the last while, and we've had a lot of failures, like I said, you know what I mean? So she didn't think that we would do it. She didn't think that we would make it. She just was a little negative about it, you know what I mean? But I was like, no, I really believe it. I think we can definitely do this. I can sell this. And so we opened it in January of this year in our master bedroom with the goal of making about $1,500 in our first month. And that was a very low goal, and Becky didn't think we would get there. And by the end of January, we had made about 3 times that. Whew. And I was just like, yes. And then in our second month, exactly. Finally, finally, we're supporting ourselves. That's hilarious. Exactly.
I'll give her a hug when I see her.
She's chill. She gets it now.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And so we, I lost where I was going with that, but we,
you made enough money.
We made enough money. We were supporting ourselves, and that was fantastic. And so pretty much right away, like in February, all of our classes were full, and we were booking almost a month out.
Sweet.
But we had no waitlist function, which was a bit of a headache, you know what I mean? Yeah. So, because we're using a really cheap form of online booking software.
Yeah.
And so then we hired another teacher. We paid for her training. Amy Stubbs, a sustainable yogi out of Lindsay.
Yeah,
and she's doing a great job. She's a cool chick. And so we paid for her training, and then she started teaching for us a little bit. And it kept growing. And then I was about ready to start working with my dad doing forestry again in the summer. And I was just like, man, this is doing so good. Like, we should open another studio in Peterborough, and I'll get my training. I'll go to Toronto, get the month-long training at Stop Pilates in Toronto, and figure out this Pilates thing, and then I'll start teaching. Really forcing myself to get out of my comfort zone. You know what I mean? And so I did. I went to Toronto and learned it, and loved it. Just once I understood it from like the inside out, Pilates, I was just like, holy crap, this is mind blowing. Like, I'm gonna get so good at anything, because it's a practice of coordination. That's all it is. You know what I mean? Practicing Pilates can get you better at anything you want to do in life.
Brain training.
It's brain training. That's all it is. Yeah. So I started teaching in like June, and still just learning and finally feeling like I'm actually figuring out Pilates now, you know what I mean? Because I'm always learning new things. And so now we have these 2 studios, one in Lindsay, one in Peterborough. We moved out of our master bedroom in Lindsay into another studio, and then also bought 6 more machines for here in Peterborough. Now we have 2 studios. I mainly teach here in Peterborough, and Becky mainly teaches in Lindsay. And then we have Jess Dalladay, the healthy sweet potato. I don't know if you know her.
I don't know that one.
No, she was on the Studio PTBO podcast a little while ago. She used to teach Pilates, mat Pilates at Pulse right here. Cool. And now she is teaching Reformer for us too.
Great.
So we got...
That's rapid growth.
Me and Becky. Yeah, it's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's what month is it? Who are we right now?
It's
September.
Yeah.
September, yeah.
That's
so
crazy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Good for you guys.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's cool.
It was go time, you know, like we've been studying business for so long, and like doing all this personal development stuff to get us to be the people we wanted to be, that once we found some way that we can serve people, it was like, just get it going, show, like, get the loans, get the money going, just get it done.
It's the same way with me. Like, it was a lot of behind the scenes studying business and you know, the desire to do it, but not the readiness yet to execute, to pull the trigger. But exact same thing with me.
Yeah, I think that's how it goes, right? You're trying to find your path, and then as soon as you get it, it's like, okay, we run now.
I think so. Right? I mean, I can't.
Or at least it becomes visible to the public, and then it seems like there's a lot going on.
I think you described it perfectly, to be honest.
Yeah. Cool.
Totally.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And I also really liked the first time Kent told me about this this way that Pilates works with enhancing coordination and balance and everything. Very much akin to the way animal flow, and even the example of like the coordination with the finger pointing, that like kind of the brain training. It's fascinating to hear like that sort of relationship with what I think is becoming far more like trendy and popular with fitness, is this incorporation. So it's really cool to hear.
I think it's cool because it's like what I get out of this kind of stuff. I've done reformer Pilates once, and I'm going to come hang out with you guys at some point soon.
Cool.
But with animal flow and even with yoga and all that stuff for myself, like I find it brings me back into my body the way that I want, like, and I'm getting a workout at the same time. So why not two birds, one stone it, right? Like that makes way more sense to me because there's mindfulness included, but then also my body is like reducing stress because I'm integrating everything and I'm having fun. And I love that we're having all these, like, I think fitness is come a long way from the bicep boys. Like we're not totally. There's still that, and that's cool. Like some people find their flow in that, and that's great.
Absolutely.
But I think it's neat that there's a lot more, I don't know, you're just seeing a lot more mindfulness, a lot more mind-body work, wellness, I guess, coming
it's
forward.
Wellness. It's less aesthetics, more wellness. You know what I mean? Wanting to feel good.
Yeah.
Because those guys lifting heavy weights, when they get into their 50s and 60s, they aren't feeling so good anymore.
Yeah, their joints hurt. Yeah. I think that's cool. It sounds, the way that you speak of Pilates, it sounds like it's quite an anchor for you. Like it's, it helps you in everywhere. Your guitar, your singing, your, mindset, and then your body. It's cool.
And then plus, the cool thing about this career for me is that once I started teaching, I realized that this is a performance. And I love performing. You know what I mean? I like getting on stage and performing for people. So, as soon as I stopped sweating profusely while teaching the classes because I was so nervous, and I got into my flow state while I'm teaching, then it became more of like a performance, and I'm like controlling the tempo of the room with the way that I talk and stuff. You know what I mean? And it
becomes a dance that way.
It becomes a dance, and it's so beautiful. It's a great, just perfect path for me, and it just kind of it came down to for me, like I was I'm a very liquid person in my way of thinking. I'm not very consistent. You know what I mean? I'm changing, learning new things constantly. And I was kind of the main leader of our business journey, me and Becky. And then after just so many things that I just failed at, like running, like I didn't fail. It's just like I just stopped doing it because I didn't like it anymore. Like selling things on eBay, selling things on Amazon, trying all these different business methods. I went, okay, I have to stop investing in myself. It's time to invest in Becky. She's been doing the same thing for the last 7 years. I don't think she's going to change. Let's do what she's doing. That seems to be the best way of going about it. You know what I mean? So I was like, we're going to go your way, Becky, and we're going to do your thing. And it worked out fantastically because we were able to marry my skills of having kind of just being a jack of all trades in a lot of ways with her consistency and level-headedness. And together we kind of fill in the holes that we have within ourselves. You know what I mean?
That's lovely.
That's like Jordan was talking about the power of partnerships last week.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example of it. So I think just so that we're not going over time, I know you've got a Pilates class to teach here soon, and Telsey's got to get going.
For sure.
Kind of just wrapping up before we kind of leave people clues where they can find you and all that. If they don't know, it's literally next door. But what are the key takeaways with business advice for you? Like it sounds like there's been a lot of lessons learned along the journey, and which ones stand out to you as the most tried and true?
I think a really simple business idea, and it's basically what you followed, really simple business tip, is find something that's working in the city.
Yeah.
And bring it to a small town. That's the easiest way of doing it. People have their Instagram. People know what's going on in Toronto. People know what's going on in all the cool cities. You don't even have to do the educational part of the marketing anymore because the people are already there. But they're usually, if they want to go do something like, say, Reformer Pilates, they're traveling all the way to Toronto to go do it.
Yeah.
Or if they want to go on a flow tank, they're traveling to Toronto if they want to do it. So people know about these things. So don't worry. That market is there.
Yeah.
If your town has like even 20,000, we're killing it in Lindsay.
True.
20,000 people.
Lindsay's fitness community is insane.
It's great.
Yeah. It's blown me away. Yeah.
Because we've also got Dr. Sean, who was on last week. He's got the Fit Body Boot Camp there in Lindsay, and they've got Quartz Lakes Chiropractic as well. And yeah.
I got to listen to that podcast. I listened to a little bit of it, but I got to listen to the rest of it.
Yeah, it was a good one because he had just come back from the Iron Warrior competition, which is a sort of like an Ironman race for veterans and for reservists in the Army. So very fascinating and lots of mental toughness there. A great podcast for getting a little bit of that kind of motivation. Yeah,
cool.
So otherwise, business tips: work on yourself. You know, you got to have that light in you if you actually want to shine that light for people. You got to have energy if you want to give people energy, because that's all that money really is. It's a money exchange. It's an energy exchange.
Sure.
You know, and then you gotta. I think partnership is so important too. You know what I mean? Like without Becky, I'd probably be like living in a van down by the river or on the streets of Thailand. I'd love that life. I'd choose it. I would do that for sure if I didn't have Becky. But Becky wants to start a family and do the thing, so I'm doing it with her. And so yeah, you need someone to drive you.
Yeah.
That partnership is good for keeping you focused and stuff.
Right.
So
cool.
Yeah, that's it.
Very cool. So where can people find you and anything else you want to include before we wrap up here?
People can find me at Pulse Physio in Peterborough here. I'm usually here throughout the day. If they want to get a hold of me, I'm Cool Kent on Instagram.
With a K.
With a K. Yep. Cool Kent with a K.
If you want to know when the band's performing or anything like that.
Yeah. That would be on the Instagram page or my Facebook page, which is just, my name is Kent Sheehey. You can find me from the Sweat Happy Wellness page too. Follow Sweat Happy Wellness on Facebook or follow Sweat Happy Wellness on Instagram. Totally. It's probably the best place to, if you want to know what I'm doing. I don't post too much to the internet anymore.
Yep.
I've fallen off that game a little bit, but it's just because it's not where my interests lay right now. My interests lay in people, you know what I mean? Really helping people one-on-one. Cool. But yeah, that's where they can find me, the internet. Cool Kent, Sweat Happy Wellness.
Yeah. Huh. We usually do the digital minimalism thing, but you kind of touched on it several times here today that I think was beautifully succinct and doesn't really need to be expounded upon anymore this time. But I think we'll definitely have to get you on the show again, though.
I would love to, for sure.
There's a lot we can dig.
Yeah, there's a lot we can go into, but we'll wrap it up here for today just so that we're not interfering with the regular flow of the day. So
for sure.
Thanks for being on, Ken.
That was really fun.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
We'll talk to you again soon. Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening or watching this episode of the FlowCast. If you like listening to this podcast, be sure to leave us a review and a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. It helps to spread out the awareness and let other people know about the podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button and subscribe. And if you want to be notified when these episodes come out each week, you can also hit the bell beside the subscribe button and you'll be notified right away whenever a new episode of the FlowCast is launched. We love to hear from you about whatever topics you want us to cover on the FlowCast. So send us your questions. You can either find us through YouTube or Instagram, whatever's easiest for you. And that way you can send your questions in and we'll be happy to answer them on the show. And of course, as always, thank you for watching and we'll talk to you again next time.